And that reporting is just the numbers, not who you are. Just before we go on to today's meeting, our next month's meeting is October 2nd, first Sunday. We're back to first Sunday. We were a little late because of Labor Day. And the topic will be some notorious murders that happened in the 19th century. So I can't give you, it's the Kittle Culver Dodge murders. And the speaker is Dr. Jill Whitbeck-Knapp. So these, if you're interested in old-timey local murders and interesting stories, fine. But today, we have Dodie Gearing from Canaan. She is the town historian for Canaan, and she's also the curator, the museum curator for the Canaan Historical Society, and she's involved in a lot of historical society things. A mover and shaker in that world. So she will be talking about our neighbor, or sort of neighbor, the Berkshire Farm Center and Services for Youth, which we used to know as the Berkshire Farm for Boys. So, welcome, Dodie.
Hello, everyone. Wow, this is a wonderful turnout. Great. I am a retired social studies teacher from Chatham High School. I did 34 years in high school and did the social studies program for 34 years. But I've been the honor since 2017 as the Canaan Historical Society, or the Town of Canaan historian, and then also have been the curator of the Canaan Historical Society Museum, which is over on Warner Crossing Road. Our president is here, Lori Hickok, and so we're glad. This was an interesting endeavor for me, and I know we've got some Berkshire Farm people who work here, but I found it interesting how it's changed, what it's become from when it was originally started. So I'm going to give you a brief history, and don't hesitate to ask any questions, and I don't know it all at all. This was great research for me. All right, so it's the Berkshire, it's now called the Berkshire Farm Center and Services for Youth in Canaan, New York. We need to get into how this got started. It was started in the spring of 1886. It was Frederick Gordon Burnham and Catherine Hilliard Burnham, and the vision of helping wayward youth. And it was incorporated in 1887. They, in 1885, towards the fall of 1885, bought 580 acres from the Lower Shakers, which is on the northern side of Quechee Lake. So the original land was purchased from the Lower Shaker community, 588 acres that he purchased. And then it was supposed to be a farm, and Mrs. Burnham was the person who, and I'm going to tell you about these two wonderful people, who wanted to change the farm. That she wanted to bring troubled youth, wayward youth, to a place where they could change them, and bring the boys to change their behaviors. And they would leave the farm and go on to a new life. Now, Frederick Gordon Burnham was born in New York City, June 29th, 1831. His father and mother were from Morristown, New Jersey. So that's where he came. He graduated from New York University in 1851. He went into the bar in 1853, and he worked with the firm of Barney, Humphrey, and Butler. And then he attended Harvard Law School and began to practice law. So he was a lawyer, and this is Frederick Gordon Burnham, who died August 7th, 1918 at the age of 87, and he's considered the founder along with his wife. So that was Gordon Burnham. So these are the people, and that's an actual picture of him. Now his wife was Catherine Lydia Hilliard Burnham. She was born in Dedham, Massachusetts. She was the daughter of Francis Hilliard and Catherine Dexter, and they were descendants of Reverend John Haven, Massachusetts. He was a patriot, a Revolutionary War patriot preacher. So she came from a very influential religious family. And Catherine of Roxbury, Massachusetts, married Frederick Burnham, a prominent lawyer from New York City, on April 27, 1859, in St. James Church in New York City. And they had one daughter. So those are the two people that are the founders. So Catherine Hilliard Burnham died March 10, 1917, in Morristown, New Jersey, at the age of 80, and Now, Frederick Gordon and Catherine Hilliard had a commitment to making a difference to kids. She wanted children's lives, they wanted them to be successful. They didn't want the troubled youth to continue in their troubled behavior. They started, it was originally, and I'll tell you further more, it was the Burnham Industrial Center. Now, the Berkshire Industrial Farm original buildings were purchased 580 acres of land from the local Shaker community, and that's an early picture. And it actually, within 6 months after purchasing it in the fall of 1885, they got going. They had a lot of financial support from very prominent people in New York City and in New York State, which would support the whole concept. The Burnhams were Sunday school teachers in Newark, New Jersey area. Frederick Burnham had a partnership in the New York law firm with John Van Buren. That's the key. Son of Martin Van Buren. And he was looking for a piece of land. And it was because of the son of the 8th president from Kinderhook that they looked around and they found the land in the town of Canaan. And they acquired it by knowing John Van Buren. I said the Burnhams had many wealthy and socially prominent friends who were interested in the work of the farm, and from the start it was pretty successful. In 1886 there were 20 boys, so we're talking about not a large, and it's going to grow. So the program starts really, really small with only 20 boys in 1886. The farm was arranged in a cottage plan. It says the boys are received one of 3 ways. So how do we get these boys to 1886? How do you get them into Canaan and to the facility? They were committed by magistrates. One way was a judge could order them to be there. Parents could actually contract, and guardians could contract them to be there, or transfer from another institute. Sometimes they were taken out of a different institute and from anywhere in the Commonwealth. The boys were usually admitted for 3 years or till the age of majority, which most of them are by 21 are considered the age of majority. None were admitted without a physician's certificate of good health, and all the boys were required for a common school education. Now, the Berkshire Industrial Farm had 14 boys, and by the next year there was only 14. So I'm assuming 6 of the boys got placed or they transferred. But that's the actual accurate information from the 2 booklets. At the end I have a list of my sources that I use, and I double checked. I said, why would it say 20 in 1886 and then 14 and then 20? So it was growing and changing. The days at the farm were planned with work and recreation. From 8:45 a.m. to noon, half the boys were at school and the other half were duties on the farm. It was a working farm. And so the boys would switch. Some would be in school in the morning and the others would be working farm, and then they would switch around noontime. The dairy farm, there was a dairy farm, there was the print shop, and the farm were noted for their pigs. I liked the picture when I saw that they were noted for their premier pigs. Recreation was also a part of their life at Berkshire Farm. This was a trolley car. Evidently, there was definitely activities. That is a postcard from the Canaan Historical Society, and it shows the boys having fun making a trolley car and pulling it. So that, I'm assuming around 1900. There was no date on the back of the car.
Little rascals.
Yes, they do like little rascals. They look like little rascals. It said the bellboy at Berkshire Industrial Farm, Canaan Four Corners. This was another postcard. So evidently, I'm assuming, and just as assuming, that they would ring the bell when it was time for an activity, or the boys had to change a class, or the boys had to go somewhere. The bell was rung for whatever major event that was, or a change of classes, I'm not sure, but there was definitely a bell ringing boy. Another postcard. The boys had house moms and haircuts. So it's nice to know that in this cottage setting, that they did have, they got haircuts and they had house moms. And that was a picture in about 1960 of the Berkshire Farm Center entrance under State Route 22. Now this is the aerial view about 1900 of what the farm looked like. That again is another postcard from the Canaan Historical Society, showing it was a large farm with many, many, many buildings, and it held 580 acres. So the Boys Industrial Farm in 1900, that's a picture that I found again in the Canaan Historical Society. But they did take a picture. I can see the apples. I can see them all laying down in the ground, and that is a wooded area. So, and they're very close to Queechee Lake. There is the road goes under. There is a road from the farm that goes under State Route 22 to Queechee Lake, and the boys had their own swimming area. So learning how to swim in the summer was a part of their program. So, and there was one day, I did the 100th anniversary of Queechee Lake Association, and I came out and I said, where am I going? And I went under State Route 22, and I came up in the backside of Berkshire Farm. So it really did, and the boys could connect and go right under State Route 22. Now, was the teaching of trades featured carpentry, construction, auto mechanics, printing, and scientific farming. And that, now the Gilman Hall they had a major fire, and they lost that building and some of the industrial aspects in 1913. So that was one of the original buildings that. And then it was a well-known, it became a well-known institute all over the country. It was highly recommended. It did have some years of some difficult financial, because it was not state run, it was privately run. So there are years that they were asking for financial assistance. This is a picture of the Raymond Cook and Joseph Oakes prize winner, Berkshire Industrial Farm, Berkshire Eagle. So that they did give awards and honor the kids in order to give them a positive reinforcement for good behavior. And this was, they brought in Dr. Michael Puppin, a noted scientist and guest speaker at their anniversary celebration. It says from left to right, Samuel Carter, president of Berkshire Industrial Farm, Dr. Michael Pippin, and a science and guest speaker. So they did bring speakers. They did have an annual meeting. Every year the board of directors and the Berkshire Farm had an annual meeting, and that's where they would have speakers and programs for the farm. Berkshire financial support came from prominent families. Then in 1970, they built a brand new high school. The high school opened up. I don't know the numbers. I have never seen the numbers of how many boys they had. But they did build a school in 1970. Brand new school. And that's an aerial view of it right now. That's what the farm looks like, an aerial view of Berkshire Farm for boys. Now, additional Berkshire Farm facts. The farm has grown to 1,100 acres. Some of the land is in Massachusetts, some of the land is in New York State. I wanted to get a picture of Sister Dora's cottage. They dedicated on November 7th, 1889, a little hospital that they, building that the Sister Dora the Door Cottage in memory of her. She was a nurse at the Berkshire farm, but I was unable to get a picture of that cottage. There was a major fire again on February 12th, 1936, destroyed the best equipped trade school and was re-equipped with insurance funds. It had then, back in that dormitory, a gymnasium, administrative building, a superintendent's office, 6 cottages. In other words, the cottages were where the house parents were. The kids lived in the cottages and were taken care of by the house parents. A kitchen, a laundry, a large barn, and the academic school, and the infirmary. And the Berkshire farm, that was the one picture that I wanted of the Berkshire farm chapel, which was built by the boys with the stones right from Canaan, and they built the chapel. And I said, can I get a picture of the chapel? And I do not have a picture of the chapel.
Is it still exited?
It's still there. When I talked to her on September 1st and went up to the building, I said, can I get a picture of the chapel? And she said, I was denied access to the building because of the security. Yeah. But they've had 3 major celebrations. From 1886 to 1894, it was the Burnham, named after Gordon and Catherine Burnham, who started it. And then in 1894, they changed it to Berkshire Industrial Farm, and then in 1974, it became the Berkshire Farm for Services of Youth. So, and they've had 3 major anniversary celebrations, one in 1916, the 30th, 1936 was the 50th anniversary, and in June 1961 was the 75th anniversary. What is it today? Today, it was taken over by the federal government in 2018. Get the right year. It was taken over by the federal government. The presenter from the Berkshire farm came and made a presentation to the Canaan town officials, and they had taken over the farm and they were going to change it into a federal facility. So it was taken and it won an award in 2019 as one of the best employed facilities in the Albany area. I found that in the... That's the security building. I went to the security building on September 1st and rang the doorbell and was walked to the office, and I said, can I go in and take pictures? And she said, well, the main lady from Berkshire Farm wasn't there. But call back, and I said, well, can she call me and just let me take pictures of the outside? And she called me last Wednesday, and she said, due to the federal security, I was not allowed on the grounds. So so that was the building. That's today, the security building today. This was inside the office by the archivist, and showing the history of the farm. By the library documents and everything related to the farm. When I got the invitation from the Steventown Historical Society, I asked permission to see the library books, and they have turned all of the library and all the documents over to the New York State Archives. These are 2 of the original buildings. Maybe somebody else can tell me what these buildings were. So when I left the facility last Thursday, I just took pictures of the outside buildings. I don't know what they were, or if they're cottages, or if they're in use.
They're both in use.
They're still in use. Yeah,
And some cities they don't. That one's...
yeah, and that one is... that one's in use. I took the annual report from 2021 from the Berkshire Farm Center for Youth and Services. The CEO now is Brian Parchiski. The board of directors is Bob Candle. 100% of the children have a history of trauma, so they're dealing with trauma children. That's not the... They have Berkshire foster care, they have behavioral health, they have family preservation, they have group homes, a detention center, and shelter care. So that, what they listed as their primary goal is to reunify children with their families, They have behavioral services and clinical help for troubled youth.
But that's statewide,
Yeah.
Yes, it is statewide because it is a major, this isn't, the one in Canaan isn't the only facility. There are parts of the Berkshire farm, all over the state. Am I correct? All over the state.
Jody, do you know how many children they have at a time, like at our farm?
I'm gonna give you some statistics in a minute, but when this man, Brian, presented 3 years ago.
School of the Berkshire Boys School years ago, back
Yes.
in the 90s.
Yes,
I
Two
wrote
separate
school
things.
bus
yeah, this is now a different
then.
facility.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking back in the 1990s. I drove school bus down here in 1995 with one child from Hoosier Falls Central.
Oh, well, I do know that they did transport Berkshire Farm boys down to
You said that.
the industrial.
Remember that I came down here twice a day, morning and night.
Yeah, they did bring the boy.
One child.
Yep, so they did transport them, and if I remember, they went to Questar. In other words, were some of them taken down to,
Outside of Chaps, isn't it?
yeah, to the training, vocational training, and that's it. Some were brought to Chatham, and I think some were taken to
I
Questar.
don't know what he came down for, because I know they had a very strong discipline
Yeah,
down there, because I was sitting there one afternoon, and there was a whole bunch of kids coming down, boys, and I'll tell you, that instructor didn't take no, he took that kid and bam,
yeah, made him sit down. So it was
they made him mine.
made in mind and strict behavior.
We should do that today.
It's also the preservation. They're supposedly now, however many children are there, are supposed to be eventually reunited with their families. So there is a partner with parents to educate and support and strengthen families. They provide this, according to I just typed up what their annual report, and they are supposed to be supporting trauma in children. They have a detention center which is safe and secure, and then a shelter for unaccompanied children as well. They're identified sponsors. And so when the presenter was there 3 years ago, he thought the maximum number of kids would be around 60.
I heard that.
Yeah.
I wonder, who's there now, though? Are they bringing immigrant children up from New York?
The statement was that they were bringing immigrant children from the border to the facility, but I have no verification of that.
There are a lot of cars there every day.
Oh, yes, the parking lot was full, the security parking lot was full.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I don't have any details on that. They were,
I wonder.
yeah, don't know.
It's very mysterious.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
yes,
Our administrative offices are, for the whole state, are in Canaan. We
okay,
don't all deal with the youth that are on campus. But like if I do, like, I work in the finance department for HR, all these people work for people all over the whole state.
so
And we've got a lot of
it's
cars.
administrative headquarters for the new program then?
It's not even just for the new program, it's
Okay,
just
for
for
the whole
all of
state.
it. All of it.
All of
For foster care, for,
Oh, cool, I did not know that, since saying it.
but what's happening with children on campus, that's that federal, that's the immigration.
They're unaccompanied minors.
Unaccompanied minors.
Unaccompanied minors,
Yeah.
okay.
Sure, it's hard to find out. It is, I don't know, very hard to find out. That Brian's there, he's.
But that's what I'm saying, since she said for security purposes, she could not let me on the grounds, and for security purposes, she would not give me any information. So I took it as that, so. And then, now, if we could turn the lights on, I've got some cute stories. Let me put that here. I should turn it off. So I started doing research, and I had a lot of fun doing research, and I had fun doing finding stories. Of course, I loved the picture when I found the picture of Frederick Gordon Burnham.
Jody?
Yes. Sorry, I will get up, so, yeah.
What year did we start that?
1886. So it was, the New York State Legislature gave permission in 1886. So it was technically the Burnham Industrial Farm was the original name. And then later on in 1894, it became the Berkshire Farm for Boys, or Berkshire Industrial Farm. So it has changed its name. And then it was Catherine and Frederick Gordon Burnham who started it. In other words, he was a lawyer, she was a prominent lawyer. She wanted wayward children not to continue, or if they were getting in trouble and the judge put them, they didn't want them to continue with the bad behavior. I have some stories.
What happened to their daughter?
I didn't do the research on the daughter. I should have.
Yeah.
I did not follow through on the daughter.
Next time.
Next time, or I'll add it. It says, this is from the Chatham Courier, November 24th, 1915, page 4. Berkshire Farm popular. City magistrates are sending boys to that institution. The magistrate in various cities are looking with favor on the Berkshire Industrial Farm in the town of Canaan and are committing wayward boys to that institution. From Buffalo, about 25 have been sent, and Joseph Kinsbury of that city was a recent visitor to the farm. He keeps in personal touch with these boys. The majority of them communicate regularly with him by letter. So I enjoyed that one. So it was cool to get some stories. Here's another. This is the one that I wanted to get a picture of because they evidently loved this lady. The feature of the day was that of this little hospital building called Sister Dora Cottage in blessed memory of Sister Dora Pattison. It is a dainty cottage with a cheery and sunny ward for 6 beds, nurse's room, hospital kitchen, operating room, bathroom, etc. So they actually built one of the cottages to Sister Dora, I think Campbell was her last name. They call it Sister Dora. So they evidently got really good care if they became sick and had to be sent to Sister Dora's cottage. This is Teaching Trades to Wayward Boys. And this is from the New York Times, January 30th, 1912, page 6. This is the annual meeting of the Berkshire Industrial Farm and Institute for Reclaiming Delinquent and Wayward Boys was held in the new chapel at Canaan, New York on Friday. 80 boys, clad in their khaki uniforms, were reviewed by an ex-Army officer. Then there were addresses by Frederick G. Burnham, the founder and president of the institution, Dr. Franklin Carter, ex-president of Williams College, and Superintendent Edmund Hilliard, formerly of Broughton School. Today there will be a fellowship service under the audience of the new church organization. The boys are taught carpentry, blacksmithing, farming, printing, in addition to the ordinary schoolwork. The institution is in its 26th year and has been supported largely in gifts by friends. So it was not state funded. All right. This is from the Chatham Courier, March 17, 1915. J.H. Smith, who has been one of our cooks for a few months, left us on Saturday, the 13th, for his home in Pittsfield for a short vacation. J.L. Mead, our assistant farmer, spent Saturday and Sunday in Albany. Superintendent E.B. Hilliard and Mrs. Hilliard returned on Friday after an absence of 2 weeks in which Mr. Hilliard visited the founders of our school, Mr. and Mrs. Frederick G. Burnham in Morristown. Mr. Burnham is in his 85th year and has enjoyed very good health this winter. Mr. Hilliard conducted the services in the Burnham Chapel Sunday afternoon. He also preached at the church in Squeechy in the morning. Last Sunday, another of our boys, Charles Bradford, left us to take a position in Martindale with Mr. William Allen. Charlie is 14 years old, and this is the second time he's been away from us to take a position. Last fall, he went over to West Stockbridge for a month while a man was on vacation. He did well. And then Lambert Boswell of Buffalo, who's been one of our boys for the past 4 years, went to East Chatham on Monday to work for Mr. Phillips. So I just love the stories that these boys did go out and then the last visit. The Burnhams evidently wrote and came to the farm regularly. It's very neat to know that they started this facility and wrote letters to the boys, visited the farm regularly, and really became close. As Sunday school teachers, they followed the model of bringing the story to them. And Founders Visit Farm, and this is just before they passed away. Mr. and Mrs. Frederick Gordon Burnham and the founders of Berkshire Farm near Canaan, Four Corners, came up from their home from Morristown, New Jersey on Saturday and stayed over until Tuesday. It was good to look in the face of these two noble Christian people once again. They both spoke at the Sunday school session on Sunday morning. Mr. Burnham is in his 85th year and Mrs. Burnham is 80. They both have very active minds, which are rich with wisdom, and they have a wonderful way of imparting their store of knowledge. Their voices are strong and they speak with perfect ease and freedom. These visits are events in the lives of BIF and this Berkshire Industrial Farm, and it is hoped that they will not cease for many years to come. The Berkshire Farm will celebrate its 30th anniversary next year, and is in sincere hope that all of the founders will help its notable occasion. So I just love the idea. I got a lot of my information. Canaan Historical Society has 3 pamphlets. There's an article about them in the 1959. There's another article about the Berkshire Farm, Industrial Farm for Boys in the 1976, and a little bit about it in 2009. I did a lot of my research. I looked for postcards. I was always looking for postcards. The Canaan Historical had this, like, you've got great postcards. It was nice to find the postcards and pictures of these kids. So there was the pamphlets, newspaperarchives.com. I would put the name in and would come up with an article about Berkshire Farm. I used Find a Grave. That's when I got one of the pictures from findagrave.com, and you find where they're buried and stories about them and their history. Wikipedia had a little bit, but I did not receive anything from Berkshire Farm at all. So all of that's in Albany. So I had a lot of fun researching how these two very Christian people came and founded this. Now, the one story I do remember, every once in a while, when we were at the town hall, somebody from the town, and I think Pat can remember, that one of the Berkshire Farm boys was loose, and there's a car missing. Or one of the Berkshire Farm boys, or they would report another time, there's boys loose. There's state police looking for boys loose. So every once in a while, some of the boys would get from the farm and out into the town of Canaan, and they would find them, a couple hours later. Most of them didn't get very far at all. My saddest memory was my husband's fire chief, and I'm president of the East Chatham Fire Company. They had a major fire in 1973, I think it was the year. And the cottage burned and they lost the staff member inside. When the Canaan Fire Department and the East Chatham Fire Department and the other fire departments got there, unfortunately, the staff member had passed away. So there have been some tragedies as far as the burning of the Gilpin building and a major fire of the trade facility building, or the ones where they did the carpentry, the auto mechanics and all